Hey everyone, how's it going? Welcome to NoDQ&A video right here on NoDQ.com as well as the YouTube channel and NoDQ&A videos affiliate ringsidenews.com. This will be the final edition of NoDQ&A video until the WWE Clash of Champions pay-per-view is concluded. Got your questions from twitter.com/AaronRift with the hashtag PAIV. First one today comes from Alan. With Cody Rhodes and Aaron Rex both working in TNA, do you see Rhodes Scholars getting back together under a new name? I've gotten a lot of questions about Cody Rhodes, or should I say Cody, debuting in TNA. There was a video package on Impact Wrestling this week. Cody will be at Bound for Glory. That's interesting. I think that perhaps down the line we could see a reunion of the two of them in TNA. That might be a cute thing to do, but in a way, I think it would be better if they actually feuded against each other at some point, maybe even for the TNA title one day. Build up both guys as top stars and then have them go one-on-one for the championship. I'd rather see them feud than be partners, but yeah, you could play up on that, mention their past in WWE, but again, I think I would try to avoid referencing WWE as much as possible and just try to come up with something new in TNA. I'm hoping that Cody and Aaron Rex can both really excel in TNA, and at Bound for Glory, that should be the start of both of them really starting to get established into the TNA storylines. I know Rex has been doing it a little bit, but Bound for Glory is the major show, and that's going to be his opportunity to really shine. And same for Cody, to come in and make a name for himself in TNA and show WWE, hey, you screwed up in letting me go. Same thing with Rex. Both of those guys hopefully we'll be able to prove something at Bound for Glory and the future TNA pay-per-views. This one comes from Brett. Cesaro feuding with Sheamus has definitely slowed his momentum, you agree? I assume you're talking about Cesaro and not Sheamus, because Sheamus had very little momentum to begin with. Cesaro, I feel, needs some kind of change. He has been vocal about wanting new entrance music, and I think that's a start. I think you need to do more with him and really change up his character and go in a new direction with him. Some people have asked me about the idea of him possibly going to Smackdown. That might be good for him, but at the same time, if the writers are the same for both shows, nothing is really going to change. I think his character could use a little bit of an overhaul, and Cesaro winning the Best of 7 series and going for the US title isn't exactly an overhaul. So whether it's changing his theme music or giving him more of an aggressive side or turning him heel, something needs to change. He just needs a new direction and a long-term plan rather than just having him go out there and do the matches and the big swing and the 007 entrance. He needs more. He needs something, and the guy definitely deserves it. I mean, he's been way more over than the push he's been getting. The fans love him, and despite what Vince says, he connects with the people. I mean, what can I say? He's not the best promo, but he definitely knows how to deliver in the ring, and he's unique. And that really helps a lot in the wrestling industry to stand out. And Cesaro's definitely one of those guys that stands out. This one comes from Garrison Mendez. Do you see Dolph Ziggler jumping to Raw following his bad momentum at Smackdown, much like it happened with Jack Swagger? Well, there's an interesting idea. Maybe have Dolph Ziggler and Cesaro trade to the other brand, have Cesaro go to SmackDown and Dolph Ziggler go to Raw. That could be something, but again, it's about the writing team, and they're still the same writers for both shows, and at the end of the day, despite the brand extension, it's still the same people running both shows. So with Dolph Ziggler, I think, again, changing up his character, doing something different with him, going outside the box with Ziggler, maybe turning him heel. I'm not sure, but I definitely feel Ziggler needs a heel turn. I mean, even more than Cesaro. Ziggler just hasn't really been doing much in the past year or two. At least Cesaro has had his moments where he's getting some momentum, then it quickly goes away. I mean, I felt like back in April, May, Cesaro had a good amount of momentum, and now he's really going nowhere. Ziggler, it just feels like ever since that Survivor Series where he had momentum, I mean, that was really the last time I felt that he was doing really well in WWE when he was the sole survivor of that Survivor Series match where Sting debuted. But then 2 months later, Triple H and Stephanie were right back on television, and Ziggler just went back to being a guy on the roster when he could have been something really special. That could have been his breakthrough moment. So yeah, hopefully they do something like that. I'm not sure if going to Raw is going to change things for Dolph Ziggler long term. It's all about changing the character and doing something different with him. This one comes from pwpop.com. Where would you place the cruiserweight matches? WCW used to have them kick off the show. They're definitely good matches to kick off the pay-per-views, but I think that for this cruiserweight division to have long-term success, they need to push the division as something really special and give these guys higher profile matches. Sometimes if the situation calls for it, put it as the opening match, but sometimes if you have a really big cruiserweight match, give it a bigger spot on the show. Maybe put it in a semi-main event position, or hell, you have so many pay-per-views now, maybe one day put it in the main event position on one of your lesser shows, just to tell your audience that, hey, the cruiserweights are just as credible as the heavyweights, and these guys can be in the main event. When you think about like UFC and how you have your different weight divisions in UFC, and sometimes the lightweight division can be one of the top draws in UFC. Same thing with WWE, where the cruiserweights can be top draws like the heavyweights. Alright, this next one comes from Ron. What do you think about the Usos as heels? I think they are great and they are much better than being baby faces. I agree with you 100%. I feel that the Usos have a new lease on life in WWE as heels. I feel like it gives them new creative freedom and the ability to go out there and do something different, change things up. I feel it's long overdue. I feel that it should have been done a year ago, maybe even 2 years ago. And it's just a shame because you look at the Usos and how well they're doing as heels, and you could think of what if Roman Reigns had turned heel, or if he turns heel, the potential that it would have to really take him to a whole new place and see where his character can go. I'm hoping that the Usos are extremely successful as heels, because maybe that will open the door more for WWE to consider turning Roman Reigns heel at some point, which I feel is the no-brainer move, but they're rebelling and they're refusing to do that. This one comes from Daniel Jobber. So is it possible the triple threat is a sign that they decided to put the belt on Bayley due to Sasha Banks' frailty? I'm not sure. I mean, I think Bayley was added to the match because they already introduced her to the main roster and she was being built up as the opponent for Charlotte at the pay-per-view, but then it was determined that Sasha Banks could come back sooner than expected, and WWE just went ahead and made the triple threat match. Now, what does it mean? Does it mean Bayley's going to win the title, or does it mean Sasha Banks is going to win the title? That I'm not so sure about. My original prediction was for Bayley to win the title coming off of her loss on Raw, but I could see Sasha winning the title. I could see Dana Brooke costing Charlotte, and then you have Charlotte versus Dana Brooke, and then you have Sasha Banks versus Bayley at some point. You do a build-up to Sasha turning heel and having Bayley win at WrestleMania. This is what I discussed with Jeff on our predictions video. I think that Bayley versus Sasha Banks should be saved for WrestleMania, and WWE should start doing a slow build-up. I feel it's too soon for Bayley to be winning the title. Now, she very well could end up winning the title until WWE feels that Sasha Banks is going to be healthy long-term. I'm not so sure what's going on with that, but if everyone's healthy, I would hold off on making Bayley the champion. Got this one here from Matt. Did we see the best of Brian Pillman in the WWE? I would say we saw the best of Brian Pillman on the mic and as a character. Unfortunately, due to Pillman's motorcycle accident and his various injuries, he was not at the level he was at during his heyday in WCW. Pillman just could not be the performer that he once was as Flying Brian in WCW. If Pillman had been able to perform at the level he was at in WCW and his health did not give out on him, I'm fairly confident he would have been a major superstar in WWE. And quite frankly, even with his injuries, I think if he had lived, he would have been a top heel in WWE because his character was so strong that he could overcome his limitations in the ring. Got this one here from Wrestling Addict 93. What is your favorite TNA feud and why? I think I would go with AJ Styles versus Kurt Angle just because they had so many quality matches against each other. And also for the same reason, Kurt Angle versus Samoa Joe. And to me, Joe versus Angle was probably TNA's biggest box office attraction. I think of when Angle came into the company and Samoa Joe did that headbutt to Angle. Actually, might have been the other way around. Joe got headbutted by Angle. I apologize if I mixed it up, but it was an awesome angle. No pun intended. And then they had their series of matches, and then their feud resumed when Kurt Angle went heel, leading up to the Lockdown pay-per-view, which I believe was the biggest pay-per-view buy rate that TNA ever had, and one of their biggest live crowds they ever had in April of 2008. So from a box office perspective, you have to go with Angle versus Joe. But Angle versus AJ Styles, I mean, those guys had so many classic matches against each other. Got this one here from Carlitos at Ravishing Raven. How would you come up with the perfect faction? What wrestlers in today's roster would you choose to be in that stable? That's a pretty deep question. I think when coming up with the perfect faction, I would look to what worked in the past. I would look at the NWO. I would look at the Four Horsemen. I would look at DX and Evolution. And what worked about those factions is you had an elite group of superstars, at least with the NWO in the beginning before they got watered down. So the idea is coming up with the perfect faction, having your elite superstars, maybe having your top singles competitor, a top tag team, and maybe even a top female competitor. Mix it up a bit and create this ultimate faction of the top superstars. Who would I put in that faction? I mean, that is hard to say. I mean, you could just put in a bunch of random people together, maybe people that do not have a really solid storyline, but then again, you do not want to repeat some of the bad factions like League of Nations where you're throwing together 4 guys just for the sake of giving them something to do. So it's about having 4 really talented performers and having 4 guys or 4 guys and 1 gal, whatever the combination is, having them be put together and people that have good chemistry together and seeing where it can go and having them dominate the industry. This one comes from KL Adams. What is true opinion on women's wrestling? I think he's asking, what is my true opinion on women's wrestling? I enjoy women's wrestling when it's taken seriously. I wasn't a huge fan of the Divas division during the early 2000s. I just felt that it wasn't taken seriously enough and it was more about eye candy and the segments would only go a couple minutes and they did not have the best performers. I mean, they did have some good performers, but certainly now I think the talent from one end to the other is one of the best women's rosters that WWE has ever had. I would probably say the best actually right now when you look at Sasha Banks and Becky Lynch and Bayley and Charlotte and even Nikki Bella as she improves. They have a really talented roster right now, female performers. So when you have a good roster and you have some compelling storylines with them, I absolutely enjoy it. Got this one here from Ryan is War. Where should Neville be? Would Vince put him in the cruiserweight division, but I want him to be on Smackdown with the IC title? Your thoughts? Good question. I think that Neville should be a regular on television, and I'm not sure what's going on with him right now, why he has barely been used at all since coming back. It's a shame because he was NXT champion, and he's an amazing performer. He's one of the best they have, one of the most athletically gifted performers that WWE has. So I would like to see him in a role where he can showcase his abilities and have regular television time and have a purpose. And whether that's in the cruiserweight division or going for the IC title or being on Smackdown, I think you do whatever it takes so he has a regular storyline, regular TV time, and he can go out there and do his thing every week. That'll do it for this edition of No DQ&A video. Thanks as always for watching. Make sure you check out my predictions video with Jeff Meacham. The audio quality is a bit better. Hopefully you guys enjoy that. Check out the other videos coming up this weekend on NoDQ.com. And of course, Night of Champions coverage on NoDQ.com. With that being said, I will see you guys next time.